All right, here we go, man.
Do it.
Wow, we are legit back in the saddle now.
Legit back. It's July 11th, the year. It's still 2023. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron Podcast. This is episode 698.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of does seem like it's been a year in a weird way.
It seems like it's been forever. I mean, for two guys that for 6+ years, I guess close to 7, have pumped out pretty much two podcasts a week, every week since then. Yes, it feels like forever because we front loaded, as you guys probably figured out as we were pumping those out. We only did one a week because we came off a busy weekend and kind of the June's a busy month for everyone. I feel like in the triathlon racing world. And we had a tri camp in Nashville. We had close to 40 people come in, and that camp is all consuming, but wonderful. And that alone feels like a month ago. Then you had your big move, and then I was in Florida taking some time off. So we just decided to front load, not do any podcasting while we were gone. But yes, it's just weird. It feels like it's been forever. And I hope I remember the intro today. We had to kind of go back and see what number, but it's great to be back. It's great to connect. Good to talk to you again, especially after stressful times like the move. Moves are always stressful, but can be positive. As you and I have both gone through plenty of moves in the last 2 years, but we are concreted. We are set. We hope you all have been well and had a great 4th of July. Having a great kickoff to the month itself, as July is a slightly slower month, but not much. August is a little bit slower, but it's jam-packed. Had a lot of things going on since we've been gone, and a lot of things to catch up on. But first and foremost, if it's your first time tuning in today, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. Tons of revival. So we appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. Mike and I also talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. He and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level triathletes looking at their first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to the world championships, and everyone in between from all over the globe. And we use the feedback loop we have with them and training peaks, emails, text messages, and to drive the discussion today. We also utilize our Facebook group, like we did for the Q&As the past few weeks. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question, we'll let you right in. Great community, fantastic resource, and solid individuals in there. If you have questions, drop them in, because you will get a lot of great feedback from, again, a wide variety of experience leveled athletes, from Ironman champions all the way down to middle of the pack age groupers and people who are just dabbling in figuring out if they even want to do triathlon. So again, don't be a lurker, be a participant, and ask questions. You'll get a lot of great feedback. But that's it. No sponsors, no ads. But we do have an agenda, and that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yeah, and was waiting for this house to be built for over a year, and was hoping it was done at the beginning of the summer. And then, of course, they told me the day it was going to be finished was when we were in Nashville at the camp, which is, a good 10 hours away. So,
right.
But anyway, the camp, it was awesome as usual, and I don't know if you had any takeaways from that, but I don't know. I thought it was awesome. I thought it worked out really well this year, and I guess it's on sale for next year already.
Yeah. I do have a few quick takeaways on that, and maybe a lot to go through for the rest of the cast. Now that you mention it, but yes, that camp it's one of my favorite camps. This year we made a few changes: less driving, more pool sessions. Which allowed for a lot more flex time, but also made for a lot less stress, especially when you're driving around Nashville. But yeah, it's the website is live, registration is live, and it's already more than 50% full for next year. It's next June. If you want to figure out more about that, or you have questions, you can go on the website, c26triathlon.com, click on camps, find that. We'll try and put a link to that registration in the show notes. And then if you have any questions specifically about it, you can email Summer at c26operations@gmail.com. But yeah, it's great session, great camp this year. Again, I thought it went well. We had a great group training for a wide variety of races. And it's always, we always say this. We always get a great group because we get great people. I know I'm always surprised. You and I always say that. Another great group. Because
Yeah,
it is.
right.
It's always a great group of people that worked hard, pushed themselves. The pool sessions are always my favorite. Just being on deck and as someone pointed out, hitting people with pool noodles, and both to get their attention, but also to praise them. But yeah, it's always a good reminder, I think, for you and I both that have been in the sport for such a long time, that there's always something. There's always something to work through, something to worry or stress about or have self-doubt about. But also what that does is allows just tons and tons of opportunities for growth and then confidence and to figure things out. And that's why I think a lot of people gravitate towards the sport. As we've had both of us, a lot of people racing the last few weekends. And, there's always something, right, to figure out. And that's why I think we're all, to an extent, we gravitate towards, endurance sports, but especially triathlon, because there's always something, even in the best, even your best day, we always kind of leave with, the buts, or I can do this better next time. So yeah, it's always a great camp. There's been a ton of great racing. One of the things I did want to touch on, before we dive into the cast today was, you talk so much about, age is just a number. And I truly believe that as well, because I also think people are the age you believe you are. And a lot of people use age as an excuse. And I was seeing family this last week, and you hear a lot of complaints. I'm just too old on my knees, and this. And well, as a little reminder, we had an athlete, Bob Hines, at the ripe old age of 83.
Ripe young age.
Yeah. Yeah, ripe old age, young age. Finished Muscle Man, 70.3, with what in my opinion, is, first of all, to be 83 and to finish that race is incredible. But to finish with, in my opinion, an insanely respectable time, that's 7:40 for really, a lot of people, but for his age is 83. Just wrap your brain around that. 83 years old. Still out there training, still looking to compete, still trying to push themselves. So again, just a reminder that, as we talk about a lot, the mental and emotional sides of the sport, and they're always there. But you are what you believe, right? And that goes with, the good and the bad. So if you believe you're not fast, or you're not good enough, or you're overweight, or you can't do anything, or you're not consistent, well, then you probably aren't. Right. But if you believe you still have your best is still inside of you, if you still believe that there's more to get out, if you still believe you can get better, if you still believe you can still do things at whatever age you are, or no matter what someone tells you, you are what you believe. And I just think it's a great lesson for all of us that, with as many opportunities as we all have, either built-in excuses or opportunities to excuse ourselves from things. Listen, it's a great reminder that, excuses are pretty ridiculous when it comes down to it. And, you can believe in yourself to be your best and it's still out there. You can believe that you're done, but the choice is up to you.
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, this is my thing. It's, feeling younger as I get older. That's like my major goal. And I mean, going to Nashville camp, I had been, with a lot going on and back and forth to the new place and not really being in a training group. And of course, I'm doing Wisconsin again this year at 60 is my age group. How about that? And
64.
Yeah, right at the beginning. And I'm like, okay, this is a great time to kind of take advantage of that. And I've been trying, but it didn't really happen so much before camp. And we got down there and we were talking about this beforehand, but that documentary Unchained, the Tour de France. And I was watching that when we got to Nashville before we rode, and the common theme was always pain. And if you don't have this mentally, then you're going to be screwed. If you can't take it to another level in your mind and get through the pain. I mean, I think one of the guys said, this is all about pain at the end. And he said, it's a good thing I'm a masochist or whatever. And I I was just watching that going, wow, and I was thinking about cycling, and I hadn't been cycling. I certainly had been doing some trainer rides, but nothing like Natchez Trace, and the hills and everything. And I was like, okay, when we get out there tomorrow, let's just push and see what happens, And I was definitely not in hill shape, but it was amazing to me how, like, when you get your head in the right spot, how you can push that. And I kind of pushed myself to the limit on the second day for sure. And I don't want to say it was great riding, but it was pretty solid. And I was like, okay, it's interesting. I think the mind over matter is kind of a big deal. We have more. And I had a conversation with an athlete yesterday. I said, you got to push yourself when I'm not there. It's like, what are you doing when nobody's looking? And,
right.
And, we can put out workouts and training plans and all these kind of things, but it really comes down to what are you going to do in the moment when you're training? Are you just kind of always going one speed, or are you testing yourself? Are you pushing yourself up a little bit and seeing what, we talk about trying to blow up in races and everything like that. And I think, you should do that in training sometime, but not completely wipe yourself out, but at least test the limits. And for me, as I get into this thing 60 and I'm up here in the new place, and I've been re-energized with some different things because of the terrain, and it's just new exploration for me. But I feel like kind of like a kid again, and it's a really great feeling. And I think that is part of training, is really to find little routes or little training methods or different things that really kind of bring back that sort of that kid, that youthfulness, and always do that. Because if you kind of just get out and go through your grinder every day and sort of settle into a certain pace all the time or whatever, that can really, I think it wears you down, I think it's not, it's way better than, like my neighbor, he's an older guy. He's 80 or close to 80. And he came over to help me work, and I built a sauna the other day. This guy, he's a woodworker. So I was like, all right, I just need you to supervise, right? So he comes down and we're working on the sauna up on the patio, and it's on a beach here, so it's all sand off the patio, but it's a little bit of a angle. And he's running around with a level and a drill, and he's like, we got to do this, and he steps off and he falls down into the sand. And I'm like, holy shit. And I'm like, you all right? And he goes, hell no, I'm not all right. He goes, I hope you appreciate me doing this. I go, you haven't done anything yet. And so I'm like, the whole time, every time he walks around there, I'm walking in, like, ready to catch him and stuff. But anyway, the point was, he goes, I don't even know why you want this stupid sauna. What is it? Just because you can detox out the, things out of your system or whatever. And I go, yeah, that's exactly what it's all about. He goes, that shit don't work. I mean, like, the guy's like,
sounds like you're going to be great friends.
Yeah, well, actually, we kind of are. It was sort of this like curmudgeon-y relationship we had all day. It was really funny. But I said, you're going to be in this sauna, and you're going to understand what's going on. Oh, hell no. I said, all right, well, then we're going to go swimming. He goes, well, maybe the sauna's not so bad. But, I don't know. I look at him, and I'm thinking, I have faith that he could, get in some kind of shape, or like be feeling better or whatever. I always have that, I always think like anything, that anything is possible. I look at everyone. I'm like, yeah, you could do something that you can't believe you could do right now, if you got your mind going.
Yeah, I know you said something earlier on that about, letting loose and having fun, when you're talking about the trace. And that's what I did that same day. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm definitely not, I wouldn't say in peak condition, but I came out, how you just kind of have those days, and we talk about this a ton, right? Being flexible and listening to your body and going forward on days that seem appropriate. I think most athletes know this, and I know you do too from being in sport for so long, is some days you just wake up and you go out for a run, your first step, or you take your first stroke in the pool, or you take a few pedal strokes on the bike, and you just think, I've got it today. Right. Like, I just feel it. I feel good today. And that's how I felt on that Saturday. We did a long ride in the trace. I went way longer than I have and pushed way harder from a watt standpoint. But from the first, I'd be remiss by saying a lot of it has to do with like the people and the energy, right? That you
For
had your
sure.
rollout with, 30 something people that, are all like-minded and pumped up, and you're all out doing the same thing. It was an absolutely beautiful morning on the trace. And it's kind of that happy, that perfect balance of happy, healthy, and just really grateful to be able to do what we can do. And instead of, like staring at my watch and being like, all right, well, you don't want to go too hard today because then you'd be out of zone. I was just like, you know what? Let's just have some fun and ride your bike today.
Right.
And I did push it a little bit more than I normally would have, just because I knew if I was going to make the all the way to the end and go down the big hill, I had to make sure I got back on time. But it was just fun to ride your bike. And I think that's, one of the highlights that I've kind of read through over the past few weeks of being on vacation, going back in Training Peaks, and what I've had to kind of remind athletes, especially during this time of year when it's hot, it's humid, the dew point's crazy. You're in the thick of summer, right? Especially for parents that have kids. You're kind of halfway through. Summer's flying by, so school's about to start, which is a good and bad. And I find it to be one of the most stressful times of year for athletes. It's because, especially if you have a big race, right? And regardless of the distance, right? If you're doing a sprint, an Olympic, 70.3 or full, and it's close by, you're doing some of the biggest volume you're accustomed to doing or have ever done in the past right now, right? When stress can be high and you're traveling or vacationing, and that alone can be stressful. Because travel is, I think, very stressful on everyone. And you've got how hot it's been in so many parts of the country. I know for me specifically, like being in Florida, it was like 106 by 9 a.m. I mean, it's just hot.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a harder time recovering. You got your big race coming up. So you've got all these different factors. And I was telling this with an athlete yesterday, reading back through some of the comments, is we have such high expectations, right, as type A athletes, that this time of the year seems so incredibly important, right? With getting the volume in and getting the training in and nailing every session, because now you're kind of in that, you're not in no man's land, where you're 16 weeks out and you're like, yeah, I can take a little bit of time off. Every session seems really, really vital and really important. And every session's important, but missing one session is also not detrimental, right? And this athlete who absolutely nailed their 70.3, won their age group by like 20 minutes in June. The comment after comment after comment was just frustration, and I'm not liking my bike because they're focusing so much on speed and they have some self-doubt creeping in and they're worried about things. And as a coach, I just said, listen, I said, first things first. You could do Ironman Wisconsin tomorrow if you wanted to. Fully believe that.
Mm-hmm.
You're trained for it. But the thing you need to focus on the most in the next few weeks is not the perfect cassette, not the perfect wheel set, not being in the perfect zone. You need to go have fun on your bike. You need to stop being so, anal about making sure it's perfect and then expecting so much out of yourself when you're still fairly new to the sport. Because we talk about this a ton, we have since the very beginning of the podcast, is that most people get burnt out mentally and emotionally long before they get burnt out physically. And when it comes to
100%.
especially 70.3 in Ironman training. And you have to be able to hedge that, and you have to be able to remind yourself to go out and have fun, to go out and do this. Not everything has to be so calculated, because it does. It makes things so very difficult, and especially this time of year where you can wake up and go out on a run one day and feel incredible because the humidity and the dew point is down, and all of a sudden you think you turn the corner the next day, the weather changes, and all of a sudden, you're doing 77, dew point, 100% humidity, and it's 100 degrees by 8 a.m. Right? You're not going to see the same numbers, and that's not just perfectly fine, but that is expected, and that's all you can do with those kind of conditions. But you have this vision in your mind of what success and execution and doing things, well looks like. And then when you don't hit that, you think about all the time and all the investment and all the effort you're putting into what you're doing, and you're having a hard time finding the return, right? You invest so much, you book hotels, you tell family you're doing it, you book flights or travel and time and maybe even a coach and supplements and gear. And you've got all these things, right, swirling around your head and your mind and your heart. And you're like, God, I've investing so much. I need to get something out of it. Well, when you get to that point to where you feel I need to work out, I have to get something out of it, you're already taking a few steps back. The best place you can find yourself in, right, as we always talk about, open up the show with it, happy and healthy, right? But if you are ready to go from the chin up, you already have a huge advantage over the field. So if you're in these like final, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks of a training, remember to have fun. Remember to have fun that you're doing it, and that the upside and the return on investment should be every day, right? You're increasing your fitness. You're doing something for yourself, whether it's, focusing on it because it's great for you fitness wise, but also, listen, training is therapy for most of us, right? So you're doing something for your mind and for your emotions. And then you're also getting fitter and faster, and it's also making you happy. These are all good things. So don't get lost, right? In the heat, in the humidity, in the fatigue, and then get into that spot where you're forcing your happiness in what you're doing, but also, feeling like the pressure we put on ourselves to execute on race day is way too much, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it usually gets in our way. So I think, again, this time of year with how close it is to so many races of every single distance, it's kind of like crunch time, right? But the best thing you can do is to not obsess about it, but to have fun with it and just focus. So focus and fun should be what your intent is, and just let the chips fall where they may.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think about stuff like, like yesterday I went out, I had a 40-minute run. It got, for up here, it was pretty hot. It was almost 90 in the afternoon. And I just like that. I don't know why. I've always kind of seemed to magnetically start running when it's like the worst time of the day. But, so what I did was like, and then there's another thing with me is I take a little while to loosen up, as you know. Yeah. And so what I went out with the intention of was a 40-minute run, but I was going to take 60 minutes and do walk runs, especially early. Cause I find that when I get going, like sometimes that first 5 minutes can be like, oh, this is going to suck. But if I just kind of do a 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 1, whatever here and there, and then I kind of get about, through the first mile, and then I start to feel good. And I think my cooling system turns into, gets in better shape and everything like that. And then I just, sort of like take little breaks. And I don't know if I'm doing it right or whatever, but it really is enjoyable, especially when I'm out exploring new scenery here and trying to find new trails or different little offshoots or kind of running in and out of sand and things like that. It just becomes this whole enjoyable exploration. And I think exploration might be a good word for how to look at training. Like what else can you find? And I know for sure, like when you come up here, we're just going to be looking for different things. That's just what we did, like when we found the lab and everything, and we just kind of look for different like ways to make it intriguing and go off course a little bit. And, but like, just like yesterday, I don't know where I'm at exactly, but when I got done, I felt strong, and that's that strong feeling that you really want to have rather than just completely depleted because you powered through a run you weren't in the mood for mentally or maybe physically or whatever. But when you get done and you can feel good, and like we talk about all the time, and I think about this all the time with Ironman marathons, is people will come out and they'll feel good for the first 5 miles and then they end up walking the last 6 miles or whatever. But why not kind of like find your groove within that marathon? It's pretty long, right? It's if you don't think you have the ability in the beginning, if you know that feeling when you go out for a run and you're just like, oh man, I don't know if I got this. And, I think you really need to let that unfold rather than to try to just push through the whole thing. I mean,
listen, you and I both are huge on exploration and figuring things out and not being so rigid in everything that we do. And that's one of the things we really try to communicate and impress on our athletes is that flexibility is such a huge benefit, right? Flexibility to adapt and maybe move from plan A to plan B, right? Or even yesterday, I was talking to an athlete, and they asked about, race plans and what do you give? And, do you have an A, B, and C, race plan? I said, well, to be honest, I said, generally speaking, what I give and prescribe is the B plan, right? The most likely outcome of the day. And I think a lot of athletes make giant mistakes, not just in training, but also in racing, is they focus so much on their A plan. But if you've raced for a long time, and especially if it's going to be something over an Olympic, like a 70.3 or a full or a marathon, you know that the day is so long and so demanding. There are so many outside factors, right, playing into it, that having your best day, your A day, it doesn't happen very often, right? You can have the best training and the best lead up and maybe even the best conditions. And there's some days you just wake up and you don't got it, right? So what I told him is that, I always tell people this is your most predictable day, right? Based on what I've seen, based on the rolling average, this is what I expect. You don't give an athlete best case in terms of, numbers to hit, because everything below their best day, again, which they're not likely to nail, right? I'm talking about best day. I'm not talking about PRs or podiums. I'm talking about, getting 110% out of their fitness that day, which if you've had it, you know what it's like, and they're hard to come by, is you give them, because everything that's less than that is not good enough, right? And then it immediately leaves room for self-doubt. Oh, I just don't have it today. When really you might have what you've been having 99 days out of the last 100, right? But you're expecting that 1 out of 100 day to happen on race day just because it's race day. So I generally give the plan B, and then you allow them the freedom, if they're feeling it, right, within a few sets of boundaries and outlines, to, if you're feeling it, then feel it, right? And you be the captain of your own ship. You be the person in the driver's seat, and you decide when to push it. You, not me, you. So if I give you 200 and you think you're feeling hot and saucy and you're ready to roll, then after 80 miles of full, push up to 210, 215, asking yourself a few questions along the way, but do that, because you're the only person, because the fact is that no one can predict an A day. You just know it when just like we talked about in the beginning of the podcast, like you take those first few steps, you take those first few pedal strokes, and you hop in the pool after a first link, and you just think, ooh, I got it today. And no one really ever expects it. Most oftentimes, you actually get your A day when you think you're going to have a C day, right? And the days you're expecting, an A day, you get your C day. That's just how it works. And so you have to be flexible, with that, and push it, especially this time of year. But going back to what you said about, getting out in the heat of the day and the exposure and stuff like that, we have a phrase or a motto that I have adopted, and you can put this on a shirt if you want to, for athletes that are in these just oppressively nasty parts of the country right now. And when it comes to running, I said, if you dread it, tread it. And in short, it means if you're dreading your run, then hop on the treadmill. So if you dread it, tread it. And because the thing about this time of year is that we have so many things at our disposal, right? Most people have an indoor trainer, right? They can do anything they want to inside. They have access to a treadmill. They have access to an indoor pool. And then 80% of people have access to outdoor riding, outdoor running, outdoor pool this time of year. And I was commenting on this with an athlete who's done swimming and biking and running all outside right now. And I think we forget the extra accumulated fatigue that comes with doing everything outside. Because we preach this in the winter and the spring, in the early parts of the summer, is when you can get outside, because outside is harder, period. It's just harder. There's too many other factors, mentally, emotionally, physically. It's harder to do outside. And when you start doing things all outside from not having done most things, and you're going to have a learning curve. But then when you add in how just, really awful some of the heat has been, and you combine that with the amount of air, the piss poor air quality, right, that people have had in a large part of the country, it's been a rough go of it the last 3 to 4 weeks. And so what you have to do when you look at your day, right, and you look at your session, try to match your environment with your expectations, and be honest about it. If you have a threshold run and you're expecting to do well in it, don't fucking take it outside at 2:00 in the afternoon and expect world records. Yet, Athletes do that, right? I was really expecting to nail it today. I don't know what's happening. And it didn't, well, in hindsight, it was 2:00 and, all I've had today is a veggie wrap and a bottle of Gatorade. I just can't fathom what went wrong today. And we're like, wait a minute, then do it on the treadmill. Same thing goes for a bike. Like if you have really, really hard intervals, doing the bike, because again, we talk about flexibility, not being so rigid. That goes with both ways, right? Stay inside some, be outside some. Be outside some, go inside some, right? Because then if you get so rigid about doing it outside, then you continuously feel beat down in both times of the year. We talked about it, over the wintertime, running outside here in Kansas, -10, -5, 0. It's like you can toughen up for a bit. But then the moment you start to think, I'm not looking forward to this, you waited too long to adapt, right? Maybe take one, replace 2 of your, 5 runs a week and put them on the treadmill. Give yourself some space, right? Because again, it's not about becoming soft, right? We've always been promoted about doing things outside as much as you can, right? But not every day, right? Same thing goes with outdoor swimming. If you're swimming outside right now and it's feeling sluggish and you're distancing yourself from your belief in what you can do, because it is so, right? That swimming to me is the hardest to do outside right now, because it's already the hardest aerobically and anaerobically for so many people, because you have to hold your breath for a certain period of time, no matter what you're doing, how easy you're going. Humidity is high, dew point's high. It's just hard to breathe, right? It's like breathing through a straw. And you're getting fatigued. And of course, if you swim, at certain pools, the water temp's like 86, right? Got to keep the elderly folks happy. It just sucks. Then take your ass inside one day. You'll feel like Michael Phelps. I mean, especially if you go from like 50 meters to 25 yards inside, gigantic. Same thing with outside. Take it inside for a day, right? And it's not about being soft. It's about recharging your resilient battery, because everyone, no matter who you are, no matter how tough or resilient or stubborn you think you are, everyone has a certain amount of energy they have when it comes to resiliency before they need a reboot, right? Take our vacations, for example, right? You and I work a ton, year in and year out, day in and day out, almost pretty much 7 days a week. You need time, right? In order to be your best, you need time away, to step away. So take those cues, right? When you look at your session and be objective. What is the goal for today? Okay, well, I know I want to go outside, but at the end of this, is it going to have suited me best? Or same thing inside. If you get a 3-hour easy ride and you know you can do it outside, then why are you hopping on the trainer inside? Right? So you just have to, again, we have so many things at our disposal, which I think is great for so many people with different, schedules and demands and their family life and where they live. Options are great. Just don't, it's like they kind of say about food, right? Is they say, there's really, most foods are pretty good for you or fine. It's just how much you eat of a certain food is the problem. And I think that goes with the type of training. Same thing with like the winter inside, right? You focus so much on just training inside that you hate the bike just in time to actually go outside and ride it frequently, which I always say, hop on a gravel bike or a mountain bike. Keep it fresh, listen to yourself, and recognize those signs of burnout. Because again, it's not the physical burnout, it's you mentally and emotionally burning out long before the mental stuff happens.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, that's all part of, exploring and doing things in a different manner, inside, outside, whatever. And I think it, because I am in a short season up here, I really do gravitate towards outside, but I really have to pay attention to how I'm treating myself before and during and everything like that, and make sure that I'm on point. I mean, we're going to be talking to Alex Harrison, I guess, soon, and about nutrition and things like that. And those are things that we really have to almost be vigilant with if you're doing a lot of outside training, because it can really come back to beat you up quick, because he talks a lot about, obviously, people lose more sodium than they think. And, I've seen a couple things with him, and he's always talking about I'd add a little bit of sodium, It's kind of on that tip, man. And I don't think that, I certainly know that I haven't done that enough, and it's that sort of trend thing that we all get caught up into a lot, and like fasted workouts and water only and things like that, just to hope that we can lose weight or whatever, build a fat, or recruit fat and stuff like that. But I think we really have to pay attention to that, especially when we're outside a lot. I mean, really making sure that you're not underdoing it, because it'll start snowballing. And like you said, then you get to the point where like, damn, you just start dreading it. And I usually, as I've done many more Ironman and stuff like that, I get to the point where I can't, I have to take breaks, for a little time here and there throughout the year and stuff. I can't just continually do it, because I don't have the, I guess, tenacity to be on top of my nutrition all the time. And I think it's a big part of it, honestly. But, so yeah, getting outside, I mean, that's where I'm at right now too. So I have to really make sure that I'm trying to find times in the day and give myself enough space, like between workouts. Because a lot of times what I'll get in trouble with is doing something late at night and then doing something in the morning the next day a little too hard or whatever, back to back. And then I'm like, so I like to, I think I talked about a long time ago, I like to create I like to think about when I'm working out and creating a whole nother day between it, kind of, even though it might be the same day, sort of thing.
Knowing, and again, we talk about this a ton, is knowing your body, and again, I think we get so caught up, right? Especially athletes that are high functioning, high level, type A, want to always do great, is that we like to only focus and obsess and magnify our strengths and our bests and when we've met our expectations. But one of the biggest strengths you can have as an athlete is understanding and recognizing and respecting some of your weaknesses. And we all have them. Every person has them, right? And like, listening to you talk, it reminded me, when you go all in on something, again, training is also very much like a diet. You restrict and go all in and focus so hard, eventually your mind usually revolts before the body does, right? I would say like 99 times out of 100 people start a new diet. It's not their body that says, you know what, this losing weight thing isn't for me. It's usually your mind, because you've restricted so many things that you just get tired of feeling like you're missing out, right? You get tired of feeling like you can't do something. We can only withstand that so long, right? Just like when we feel like we're forcing ourselves to do something. I have to go outside today. Have to go get out in the heat. Have to do this. Then you're in a bad spot, because then it's not just a day you take, right? It's a couple days. And then the longer you take on any break to doing anything, the harder it is to get back in the groove. The harder it is to recommit. So the best thing you can do, especially again this time of year, is to commit to where you want to be at the end of the year, right? And expecting perfection from January 1st through December 31st is naive and disrespectful to yourself. It's not possible, right? Every athlete should have a roller coaster of a year, right? Not maybe so much hopefully not in like life with, trainings and niggles and sickness and whatever, but periods of load, periods of unload, right? Periods of focus, periods of not being as focused, or just being flexible, right? So instead of becoming, going from focused to really, really unfocused, be focused and then, just be flexible, or know what you need. And, like speaking like a weakness, like an athlete who raced this last weekend, and usually after 70.3, I'll give choice days, right? Choice days for a week, do what you want. And a lot of athletes, their choice would be to rest. And then a lot of athletes, their choice is to always do something. But that's not always the answer. So with this athlete, I know if I gave a choice day, they would feel obligated to do something every single day after 70.3. And so this week I gave nothing but rest days. Giving them the opportunity, allowing them, the space to, not the privilege, the permission to rest. And, again, going to a phone call I had the other day with an athlete is, one of the best things that coaches can provide. I mean, a lot of athletes think it's, the perfect, writing of the training and the, how specific things are and the perfect distribution of intensity. But the biggest advantage coaching does for most people is relieves you of stress and allows you permission, right? Permission to push it when you feel it, or permission to not do something, right? To take a day off and to encourage you and to let you know and to reinforce the belief that that's okay, right? Because all athletes perform better supported and feeling free and excited and happy and healthy. Like that to me is the most dangerous athlete. The athlete that is the least dangerous and the most likely to, put out a stale, underperforming, tired performance is the ones who had to work out and crush themselves in training, right? And there's that phrase, most athletes leave their race in training, right? Because they worry so much about not doing enough that they do way too much. They never really race their potential. They race in training. And those are the I'd take the athlete, and going back to something we've said numerous times, is I'd take a fresh, fit, happy and healthy 70.3, focused and fast athlete long before I would take a burnt out, toast, stale, 18-hour a week Ironman athlete. Mm-hmm. You have to remember that. And again, and that goes back to feeling, right? Feeling crisp, feeling like you got some tension, feeling like you got some pop, feeling like you can go fast. Right now, you'll be hard pressed to find that outside. You just will. Mm-hmm. It's not because you're not heat adapted. It's not because you're not acclimated to the heat. It's not because you haven't gotten fitter. It's just basic science and physiology. You cannot perform to your absolute best. There is performance degradation at like 65% dew point. Like a significant. Over 70%, most people would tell you that any intensity done outside was negative because you just can't do it. So remember that and do things to feel fast, especially, again, like this time of year, we talked about, go inside to stay focused and, recharge your fitness batteries or not your fitness, your resilience batteries, and make sure you can, you're there for the day, right? Because again, 70.3s, fulls, marathons, really any race, you got to be there. You got to be willing to go there mentally. And that's like our phrase we use all the time about the run. You got to do it once. Mm-hmm. So every session should really be about charging, right? And making the battery bigger for race day, not continuing to burn mental and emotional matches on every ride and every run that you're crushing on the weekend that seems so daunting and leaves you feeling crumbled. And that, unfortunately, is July and August for 80% of long course athletes. Mm-hmm. Those 2 months feeling stale, tired, and crumbled. And then they wonder why they, one, can't put out a good race performance, stay the same, or get slower. Right? So you have to take that time, do things that make you feel fast, do things that make you feel crisp, set yourself up for success, and think about, how do I want to feel for race day? And is this going to be one of those days where I, the side that, the scale is going to be tilted more towards lacking confidence or building confidence? Because again, that stuff is momentous. You will create momentum every single day, one way or the other, right? Towards feeling fit, fast and fresh and ready and optimistic. And I got this. Or you'll create momentum the other way, right? I don't think I can do this. God, I'm tired. How many more weeks of this? How many more, 19 century rides your coach has going for you? 19 2.5, 2:45, 3-hour runs you got going for you? It's like, because that's what happens. You start counting down like that, you think, ugh, it looks miserable instead of look exciting, right? And look attainable and achievable. So again, managing your fitness and managing your exposure to the elements is still very much the same as managing where you are with your emotional and mental battery right now. And then knowing that it's going to change in 2 weeks and just being, again, flexible and not rigid and understanding how things affect yourself. Because we've all been in summer long enough to know what to do and what not to do. Now it's up to you to make the changes, right? From a fueling standpoint, from an approach standpoint, from, going inside or outside standpoint. You've been in it long enough. We're mid-July, folks, right? Because by the time you get used to it, guess what? it's going to be fall.
Mm-hmm.
So make those changes now, and line yourself up better for race day. And again, a better mental, emotional, and physical position.
Yeah. Training up, I've talked about many times about how my goal is usually just to feel the best I have felt all year on race day. And like what you're saying is beautiful, because, you can have, 10 century rides out there. And if you get to the point where like the last 4, you're just like dreading them, and you're going through the motions and things like that. And the other thing I talk about on race day is I always count on the energy of it. Like you were saying about camp, people around, there's a legit energy there. It's kind of like running down the greenway and you see some people there, your stride comes together a little bit more, and you look down at your watch, you're going about, 30 seconds, a mile faster, just because people are around. And I think that there's something really magical about that. And I always try to, I'm not the pointy end of the scale. I try to win, the race or anything like that. But I feel like right now, my attitude adjustment, right? When I go out, I don't even think about speed, really. I mean, of course you always do a little bit, but I'm thinking about toughness, I'm thinking about resiliency and how I feel, and if I feel strong, like going out maybe for 7 miles, and you're like, okay, I don't think I could do that, but I feel like I'm right there. I feel strong and I don't feel wiped out. That was a solid run, on game day, we can pull this all together. I just got to keep building. And it's really not so much always about, especially at Ironman distance. I don't get obsessed about speed, really. I just want to be strong out there and be able to hold on, like we talk about. It's not how fast you go, that's how little you slow down. So that to me is where my head is at, and I'm not like cringing when I see pace. Although we don't have GPS up here really that good, and my open water pace has just been unbelievably slow. I don't think it's right, to be honest. But that kind of bugs me a little bit. But again, it's just like how far and how long can you go, and when you have your head in that place, it's a lot more fun for me. It's like, all right, here comes a hill. How do I feel getting up this? Oh, I felt pretty good. Was I super fast? Not necessarily, but I could keep going. And you go up another hill and you kind of keep doing the same thing, and you just know you got it, even though you don't see it. It's sort of like trusting the process. And I love what you said about, something about, you got to, trust that on race day or whatever, things are going to come around, because that's hard to do. I think people want to, I always say today isn't race day, for most people, probably not anybody today. But, what's going to happen that day? Not could I race it today? You know what I mean? It's really hard to kind of wrap your head around that sometimes, because you always want to be on top of it. You always want to feel good. But I always just look for little signs that show me I'm going the right direction. And when I get done with a run, do I feel like, I feel pretty good. But I ran hard. I did some good work there, but I'm not shelled. I mean, the minute you start getting shelled after these kind of things, if that becomes sort of the thing, then I think it's time to just, like you're saying, take a little back off of that situation and get your head wrapped around it again.
I mean, taking that time and creating that space is so incredibly underrated right now, and is the hardest decision most athletes can make, especially if they're self-coached, right? Is that you're so worried and you're so focused that every session has to happen. Every session is a must. I can't miss a session. That when you take one off, you feel behind or you don't know what to do next. And that's like, again, like going back to, talking about, training volume and stuff. And an example I've given before is very applicable here, is that you take an athlete who's consistent 12 months out of the year, right? And averages, 12 hours a week on average, but then you got an athlete who 7 months out of the year really doesn't do shit. And then they average, they try to average 16, 18 hours for a few months. Give me the consistent athlete year round easily. But what happens this time of year is that athletes can't see the forest through the trees, right? And what happens is you think one day is going to ruin you. So you do it and you do it. And one day that you could have taken off now is going to turn into 3 weeks out of the race. not just from a physical standpoint, from a being so disinterested. I can't wait for this day to be over. I can't wait to get past this. Like, I'm just kind of done with Ironman training. That's when it's time to take a day. Take a flex day. Go do something non-triathlon related, right? Go do something with your family. Take a day off. Watch it. Just distance yourself and remember that, because once you get to that breaking point, it's going to take more than a day to get back. So, and again, recognize that, but give yourself permission. Again, go back to the coaching thing. Like, that's why it's so hard, and you see so many athletes drive themselves into the ground, because they see nothing from a bird's eye view. They see nothing in a long-term view. It's all about today has to be done, or I'll be lost, or it's going to be so detrimental to my training. So you really do. You have to be. It takes so much confidence and self-awareness to take a day off, which is the exact opposite of what most people see. Most people see taking a day off as a weakness, or you're not committed, or you're lacking motivation. For most people, taking a day off shows huge confidence and awareness and self-control, because they're playing the long game. They're listening to their body. They also recognize that a day is a day, right? One day off won't hurt your race, but skipping a day off and punishing yourself and ends up being 4 to 5 days, that makes an impact. And so you do, like, you have to, and I think it is like the harder and the weaker you are, right, mentally, the harder it is to make that decision, or to make the right decision, because you've done so much and you've beaten yourself down and you're getting this. It's like, it's why it's such an interesting time of year, like as coaches, and like, end of the year, we're super busy. This time of year, so busy when it comes to like athlete inquiries and listening to people say what they've been doing and how many hours they've got this far out from a race. And you're like, why are you doing a 3-hour run on a Thursday? No wonder you feel like trash. Mm-hmm. Like, this is just not, and first of all, I don't know why people are telling people to do that, but it's insane. But like, there's just so like feeling, what's that's this one of our favorite quotes from Sebastian Kienle is, if you feel like you're totally ready, you're probably undertrained. He said that before he won Kona for the second time. Right? I think that was his quote. It was like, if you feel totally prepared for an Ironman, you're probably overtrained. He said, Everybody should have doubts. Everybody should, because it means because again, like, you feel like you've done enough, right? Especially if you're newer to the sport, you've probably done too much. And it's a weird spot to be in, especially trying to figure it out on your own. What is too much? And then you read things, or you buy books that have you doing 7-hour rides and an hour and a half, runs. Like, well, that looks miserable to everyone. And then that's why you continuously see those people in the 15-hour plus mark, or not finishing mark, or not doing them again, because you crushed yourself. The heat, the stress, the life, everything else, that's hard enough already. That's why it's like this part of the year and then the coldest part of the year, the two hardest times of the year for people, because you've got life stress and work stress and training stress and environmental stress. It's just hard. So adding in more stress on yourself by expectations and not doing things, it's just a recipe for disaster. And it's a recipe for not starting your race because you get burnt out. It's a recipe for not finishing a race because you burn all your matches and burnt your biscuits way long before that. And it's a great recipe for not wanting to do anything at all for months after you do race, because you're done. Mm-hmm. So, and I know it's hard, because you and I have both been there, and especially hard for athletes, because they don't see anything past their next race. Right. It's all about that. It's not about the next 2, 3, 4 years. It's not about the next 12 months. It's about the next 3. That's it. The world does not exist past September 9th. That is it. Don't care what happens. But then on September 10th, that's all you care about.
Right.
It's what's next. So again, it's an oftentimes fragile spot to be in. So, if you got a coach, lean on. If you don't, lean on friends, right? Or support system that are, objective, not the ones that want to go out and see you, do your 7-hour bike ride, an hour and a half brick run, the day before your 20-miler. Those aren't your friends. But find good friends, right? They're supportive and objective to help keep you in check and give you permission when you need it.
Yep. Sounds good, man.
And I give us permission to call us a day.
Let's call it a day.
Call it a day. As always, we love you guys. We appreciate you. Hope you enjoyed our one podcast a week. And you know what? maybe you'll appreciate the 2 we dropped this week, because it'll be multiplying things like we have been. As always, go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you have questions on the camps we have, make sure you click on the camp tab and choose the camp that is right for you. Lots of great camps. Few openings. Got Wisconsin camp in a few weeks. We are camping it. We're like Camping World over here. Lots of camps, lots of people, and lots of love. Also, if you have questions or intrigued about getting coaching for the rest of the year, click on our coach tab and find the coach that's right for you. And as always, if you need him, Mike, he's available, crushingiron@gmail.com. If you need anything from me, c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, buddy. That sounds good, man. Great to be back.
Yeah, same to you. I'll see you Thursday.